It's funny how a single touch can rewrite years of friendship. Or maybe it's tragic. Either way, when her hand brushed mine that night, everything I thought I knew about love about us started to fall apart. We grew up in a town that smelled like rain and coffee. Maplewood, Indiana. Small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew who you were and who you were supposed to be. I was the girl next door, daughter of a local mechanic. And she was Riley Bennett, wild hair, wild laugh, the sheriff's daughter, and my best friend since we were 6. Riley had always been sunshine and denim shorts. I used to think she carried summer in her skin. Every scraped knee, every broken rule, she was there daring me to jump from the bridge into the river, to steal peaches from Mr. Hall's orchard, to dream bigger than Maplewood. But dreams fade when reality grows teeth. And when we turned 16, the town that once felt endless suddenly became a cage. By senior year, Riley started dating boys. I pretended not to care. Pretended that it didn't burn when I saw her leaning against her locker, laughing into someone else's shoulder. I told myself it was just jealousy that I missed my friend. Not her lips, not the way her hand fit perfectly into mine. But then came that night, graduation, stars hanging low, the air thick with the smell of fireworks and unspoken things. We sat by the lake, our legs touching, silence heavy between us. She looked at me and said, "Do you ever feel like you're supposed to be someone else?" And then she kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was desperate, trembling, like she was afraid of what would happen if she didn't. My world exploded quietly in that moment, not with noise but with truth. After that night, we didn't talk for weeks. She avoided me and I pretended I was fine. That summer, she left for college in Chicago, and I stayed behind, taking care of my dad's shop, pretending Maplewood was enough. But the silence between us, it wasn't empty. It was alive. Every song on the radio, every letter she didn't send, every dream that ended with her whispering my name, it all haunted me. 3 years later, she came back. It was the 4th of July again, and the fireworks were still the same, loud, pointless, too bright. I saw her standing by the lemonade stand at the town fair. Her hair shorter now, her laugh quieter. For a moment I thought she didn't see me. But then her eyes met mine, and I swear the ground tilted. "Hey, stranger," she said, voice soft but steady. "Hey yourself," I replied, pretending my heart wasn't sprinting. We talked like nothing had changed. About work, about my dad, about how Chicago wasn't all that. But beneath the words there was something else, something sharp and familiar. The same electricity that once sparked under the stars by the lake. Later that night she followed me home. I didn't ask why. Maybe she didn't know either. Maybe she just couldn't stay away any more than I could. The old house smelled the same oil, coffee, and rain from the open window. We stood in the doorway, neither of us moving. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "Do you ever think about that night?" "Every damn day," I said before I could stop myself. And then, like gravity was tired of waiting, we fell into each other again. This time there was no confusion, no hesitation. Just two girls who had spent years running in circles finally finding the center. Her lips tasted like home and heartbreak all at once. We moved slowly, carefully, as if the world might collapse if we were too loud. After we lay there, tangled in silence, I traced the freckles on her shoulder, memorizing them like a prayer. She turned to me. "I tried to forget," she said. "I really did." "I know," I whispered. "Me too. But forgetting was impossible. Some loves aren't meant to fade, they're meant to hide. To wait until you're brave enough to face them." The next morning, sunlight spilled across the room, and for the first time in years I didn't feel like I was lying to myself. But the world doesn't stop for love. Especially not in Maplewood. When Riley walked into the diner that morning, the whispers started immediately. Two girls, same booth, too close, too quiet. It didn't take long for the rumors to crawl through town like wildfire. That night, my dad sat me down at the kitchen table. He didn't shout. He didn't even look angry. Just tired. "People are talking," he said. "About you. About her." I stared at the cracked surface of the table. "Let them talk." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "You think it's that simple? This town doesn't forget, Emma." "I'm not ashamed," I said quietly. He looked up then, eyes softening. "Maybe not. But she might be." He was right. Over the next few days, Riley pulled away again. Not all at once, just little things. Fewer texts. Shorter visits. She said she was figuring things out, but I knew what that meant. Fear. Maplewood fear. The kind that seeps into your bones and convinces you that loving the wrong person will ruin you. One evening, I found her sitting alone by the lake. Same spot as years ago. Same silence between us. I can't stay, she said, eyes fixed on the water. I know, I said. I don't want to hurt you. You already did. I smiled, but it came out cracked. She took my hand. You were my first real thing, Emma. The only real thing. Then don't leave, I whispered. She looked at me like she wanted to, like every cell in her body screamed to stay. But she didn't. Instead, she kissed me one last time, slow, trembling, final, and walked away. The sound of her footsteps fading was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. For months after she left, the town returned to its usual rhythm: coffee, rain, silence. I worked at the shop, smiled when I was supposed to, and pretended I didn't check my phone every night for a message that never came. But love doesn't die quietly. It lingers. It waits. A year later, a letter arrived. From Chicago. No return name, but I knew that handwriting. Inside, there was only one line. I finally stopped running. If you still want me, I'm here. And for the first time in a long while, I felt alive again. I packed my bag that same night, locked the shop, and drove toward the city lights, chasing the one thing that had always been both my undoing and my salvation, her. When I reached her apartment, she opened the door before I could even knock. Her hair was longer again, eyes wide and wet. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. Some stories aren't about finding love. They're about returning to it. And when I kissed her this time, it wasn't desperate or forbidden, it was inevitable. When I kissed her that night in Chicago, it felt like time finally exhaled. The years apart, the silence, the pain, all of it dissolved into something quiet and pure. For a moment there was no Maplewood, no judgment, no fear. Just us. She pulled back slightly, her forehead pressed against mine. You really came, she whispered like she didn't believe it. I told you, I said, smiling softly. I was always yours, Riley. You just had to stop running. That night, we stayed up talking until the city lights dimmed. Her apartment was small, half-unpacked boxes, a dying fern on the windowsill, and the smell of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. She had changed. There was a stillness about her now, a gentleness that used to hide behind all her noise and laughter. I thought I was doing the right thing, she said after a long silence. Leaving. Pretending I could be someone else. Someone normal. I looked at her then, really looked. The girl who used to jump from bridges, who laughed too loud, who made me believe in something bigger than Maplewood, she was still there. Just buried under the weight of pretending. You don't need to be normal, I said. You just need to be you. She smiled, a tear catching on her lip. God, I missed you. I reached out and wiped it away with my thumb. Then don't ever let me go again. For a few months it was perfect. The kind of perfect that felt fragile, like glass that could shatter if we breathed too hard. We built a small world together in that cramped apartment, morning coffee on the balcony, late night movies, dancing barefoot in the kitchen to old songs we used to love. No one in Chicago knew who we were or what we'd run from. We could hold hands in public, laugh too loud, kiss without looking over our shoulders. Freedom, I realized, wasn't about leaving a town. It was about finally being seen. But peace doesn't last forever, not when your past knows how to find you. Started with a phone call. My father's voice on the other end, rough and hesitant. Emma, he said, your aunt's sick. We could use your help for a bit. I hesitated. I hadn't been back to Maplewood since the day I left. Of course, I said finally, because guilt is a powerful thing. Riley was quiet when I told her. She was sitting on the couch wearing my old hoodie, legs tucked under her. You have to go, she said, even though her voice trembled. Family's family. I want you to come, I said. We can go together. She looked at me for a long moment before shaking her head. You know I can't. Not yet. And I understood. Maplewood wasn't just a place to her. It was the ghost of everything we'd tried to bury. I left the next morning, her kiss still warm on my lips and a promise hanging between us. Come back soon. The drive felt longer than it should have. The closer I got to home, the heavier the air felt. The streets were the same cracked pavement, familiar faces, whispers that followed like shadows. When I walked into my father's house, He looked older. The kind of old that grief carves into your skin. Didn't think you'd really come, he said, voice softer than I remembered. Neither did I said. For a while things were simple. I helped around the house, visited my aunt, avoided conversations about Riley. But Maplewood has a way of prying open wounds you thought had healed. One afternoon, I ran into Sarah Riley's old high school friend at the grocery store. Emma, she said, eyes wide. Wow, look at you. Back for good. Just visiting, I replied, forcing a smile. Her grin faltered. You heard about Riley, right? My chest tightened. What about her? She's been back and forth lately. Guess her dad's sick. Saw her last week at the diner. She paused, lowering her voice. She didn't say much, but people talk, you know. I did know. People always talked. That night I sat by the lake, the same place it had all begun. The water was still, the air cool. And then, as if pulled by some invisible string, I saw her walking toward me, hair swept up, that same hesitant smile. Hey, she said softly. Hey, I heard you were back. Yeah, you too apparently. She sat beside me, leaving just enough space that it hurt. My dad's not doing great, she said quietly. I came home to help out. I'm sorry, I said. You should have told me. She looked down. I didn't know how. Silence settled between us, thick and familiar. Then she turned to me, eyes glassy. Being here again, it's like I can't breathe. Every corner, every face, it's all reminders. I reached out, fingers brushing hers. We'll get through it. Like we always do. She didn't pull away. Do you ever wish we could just start over? Somewhere new. All the time. She smiled faintly, then leaned her head on my shoulder. Maybe someday. But someday came sooner than we thought. The next morning I found Riley sitting outside the diner, eyes red from crying. He's gone, she whispered when she saw me. I didn't need to ask who. I pulled her into my arms, and for a long time, we just sat there as the world moved around us, cars passing, people staring, whispers starting again. None of it mattered. Not then. The funeral was small. Maplewood doesn't show up for grief unless it's convenient. After everyone left, Riley and I stayed behind, sitting by her father's grave as the sun dipped low. He never knew, she said quietly. About us. Would it have mattered? I asked. She sighed. Maybe not. But I hated hiding from him. From everyone. I looked at her, really looked. The pain, the exhaustion, the strength it took just to keep loving in a world that told her she shouldn't. You don't have to hide anymore, I said. But she didn't answer. Instead, she took my hand, squeezing it like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. That night, we went back to her old house, empty now, except for the memories. We sat on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by boxes, and she pulled out a photo album. Pictures of us, two little girls with scraped knees and messy smiles. Do you remember this? She asked, pointing at one where we were covered in mud, laughing. I nodded. You pushed me into that puddle. She grinned, tears streaming down her face. And you pushed me back. We laughed until it turned into sobs. Then she looked at me, eyes fierce through the tears. I'm tired of losing you, Emma. Then stop, I said. Stop running. Stop pretending we're something we're not. She leaned in, and when our lips met, it wasn't gentle. It was raw, aching, real. The kind of kiss that feels like a promise. Afterward, she rested her head on my chest. What now? She whispered. Now, I said. We live. But Maplewood wasn't done with us. A few days later, I went into town for groceries. When I reached the register, the cashier, Mrs. Hall, who'd known me since I was a kid, gave me a tight smile. Tell Riley I'm praying for her, she said. My stomach sank. Praying for what? She hesitated. People are talking again. You two should be careful. By the time I got back, Riley was on the porch, phone in hand, shaking. They called my mom, she said. Someone told her about us. My heart dropped. What did she say? She said she's not surprised. That she always knew I'd turn out wrong. I went to her, but she stepped back, tears spilling down her cheeks. I can't do this again, Emma. I can't go back to being the town joke. You're not a joke, I said. You're the bravest person I know. She shook her head. I wish that were enough. That night she packed her bags. I begged her not to go. Told her we could leave together, start over like we always dreamed. But she just looked at me with that same ache in her eyes. You deserve peace, she said. And I don't know how to give you that. When she left, it felt like all the air had been sucked out of the world. Maplewood, for all its quiet and simplicity, had a way of killing beautiful things. Weeks passed. I stayed to help my aunt, tried to focus on work, tried to pretend I wasn't waiting for the sound of her car pulling into the driveway. Then one morning there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, there she was, rain-soaked, trembling, eyes wild. I tried, she said. I really did. I went back to Chicago, I got a new job, I met people. But nothing felt right. 'Cause you're here, Emma. You're always here. I didn't let her finish. I pulled her inside, into my arms, into everything we'd fought so hard against. When we kissed, it wasn't about rebellion anymore. It was about coming home. The next day we left Maplewood, packed what little we had into her car and drove until the radio turned to static and the horizon swallowed the past whole. For the first time in years, we weren't running from something. We were running towards something, a life that was ours and no one else's. And as the sun rose over the highway, Riley reached over, took my hand and smiled, that wild, familiar smile that started it all. Where to? I asked. Anywhere, she said. As long as it's with you. And just like that, the road stretched ahead, endless, golden, and finally free. The road carried us west, the world opening up like a promise. We didn't have a destination, just a direction, a feeling, a heartbeat that said go. The car smelled like rain and old leather, the windows half open, our hands intertwined between the seats. For the first time in years, neither of us felt like we were hiding. We stopped in a small coastal town in Oregon, a place so quiet you could hear the sea breathing. The houses were painted in fading pastels, the locals waved to strangers, and the air tasted like salt and second chances. We rented a small cottage near the cliffs, white walls and blue shutters, the kind of place that looked like it belonged to someone's dream. This is it, Riley said when we first walked in. The middle of nowhere. Perfect, I said. No one knows us here. She smiled, that half-crooked, sun-warm smile I'd chased halfway across the country. Then maybe we can finally be us. We built a life slowly, carefully. Morning started with coffee and the sound of gulls outside the window. Riley found a job at the local art studio teaching kids how to paint sunsets and oceans. I started baking for a small cafe down the street. People called me the girl with the laugh, not the girl from Maplewood. It was freedom, but it didn't come easy. At night, Riley would still wake up sometimes shaking, breath caught, eyes wide open. It's like I'm back there, she whispered once, trembling in my arms. Back in that town where love felt like a crime. I held her tighter. You're safe now, I said. No one can take this from us. She nodded, but her fingers still clung to my shirt, as if afraid I might disappear. There's something about surviving together that makes love heavier, not in a bad way, but in a way that roots you deeper. Every day with her felt like defiance, like saying we made it and we're still here. One evening after work, she came home carrying a canvas. Close your eyes, she said. When I opened them, I saw it, us sitting by the lake in Maplewood, painted in soft golds and deep blues. The reflection on the water was blurred, as if time itself couldn't quite erase us. It's beautiful, I said. But why that moment? Because, she whispered, touching the paint with her fingertips. That's where everything began. I want to remember it not as something that hurt, but as something that made us. We hung it above the fireplace. A reminder that love, no matter how forbidden, had the power to build something whole. But peace, even in its gentlest form, is never permanent. One day a letter arrived. No name, just our address scrawled in uneven handwriting. I opened it at the kitchen table, my hands trembling. It was from my father. Emma, it read, I heard you left with Riley. I'm not sure if you'll ever come back, and maybe you shouldn't. But I want you to know something. I'm proud of you. Proud that you found the kind of love most people spend their whole lives running from. I was angry because I didn't understand. I do now. Take care of her. Take care of yourself. The paper blurred as tears filled my eyes. Riley came up behind me, resting her chin on my shoulder. What does it say? She asked softly. I handed it to her. She read it silently, then placed a hand over her mouth. He's trying, she whispered. I nodded. Yeah, maybe we all are. We stood there for a long time, the ocean wind sneaking through the cracks of the window, the letter trembling between us. For the first time, the past didn't feel like a wound, it felt like a bridge. Weeks passed. The seasons turned. The town began to feel like home. People grew used to us, to the way we held hands in the market, to how Riley would wait for me outside the cafe, her hair messy, her smile easy. No one whispered. No one stared. We were just another love story among many. One summer afternoon, Riley took me to the beach. The tide was low, the sky an impossible blue. She led me down the sand, her bare feet leaving prints beside mine. I have something to tell you, she said, stopping near the water's edge. My heart thudded. You're scaring me. She smiled, nervous and radiant. I'm not running anymore, Emma. Not ever again. And then she pulled a small ring from her pocket, simple, silver, glinting in the sunlight. I don't believe in forever, she said. But I believe in us. In every version of us that survived. Tears stung my eyes. You're really doing this? She laughed through her own tears. You're the only thing I've ever been sure of. I said yes, of course. The ocean roared behind us like applause, and for a moment, the world felt infinite. That night, we celebrated with cheap champagne and burnt pasta. Riley danced around the kitchen, barefoot and wild, her laughter spilling into every corner of the house. Do you ever think, she said between giggles, that we might actually be happy? I grinned. We already are. We fell asleep tangled in each other, the ring cool against my skin, the world quiet outside our window. Years passed quiet, golden years that felt borrowed from a better life. We adopted a rescue dog, planted a garden that refused to grow straight, made friends who never asked questions. I watched her teach children to paint, her eyes lighting up when they mixed the right shade of orange for a sunset. She watched me bake pies that no one could quite replicate. We built something ordinary and extraordinary all at once. But the past, even forgiven, has a way of whispering when you least expect it. One evening we sat watching the sunset from the porch. The sky was bleeding pink into purple. Riley leaned her head on my shoulder and said, Do you ever miss it? Maplewood. I thought for a long time. I miss who we were there, I said. The girls who didn't know they were allowed to love. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's why we had to leave, so we could learn that we were. I looked at her, the fading light turning her eyes into molten gold. Do you think we'll ever go back? Maybe one day, she said, when it doesn't hurt anymore. And she was right. Years later, after my father passed, we did go back. Just for a day. Maplewood hadn't changed much, still the same streets, the same diner, the same whispers carried by the wind. But this time we walked hand in hand, heads high. Some people stared. Others smiled. A few turned away. It didn't matter. We visited my father's grave first. I placed wildflowers by the headstone, whispering a thank you for the letter that had given me peace. Riley stood beside me, silent, her fingers brushing mine. Then we went to the lake. The same place where it had all started, the first kiss, the heartbreak, the goodbye. The water shimmered in the afternoon light, unchanged and eternal. Riley crouched down, picking up a smooth stone. You know, she said, tossing it gently across the surface. If you told me back then that we'd end up here alive together, happy, I'd have laughed in your face. I laughed softly. You did, actually. Several times. She smirked. Yeah, well, guess I was wrong. We sat there for hours watching the sun dip low, the sky turning the color of memory. Before we left, she whispered, Goodbye, Maplewood. I took her hand. No, I said. Thank you. We drove away with the windows down, the wind carrying away the last pieces of who we used to be. Back home, our real home life continued quietly, beautifully. We grew older together, lines tracing our faces where laughter had lived. Some nights we'd still dance in the kitchen just like before. The same song, the same laughter, the same warmth. And sometimes when the world was soft and still, she'd turn to me and say, Do you ever think we were brave? And I'd smile. No, I'd say. We were in love. That's even harder. When people in town asked about us, how we met, how long we'd been together, we told them the truth. All of it. The friendship, the fear, the years of running. And they listened because love in its rawest form has a way of disarming even the hardest hearts. One day, A young girl from the art class came to our door with a bouquet of wildflowers. "Miss Bennett," she said shyly to Riley, "I told my mom I liked a girl today, and she didn't get mad. She just hugged me." Riley's eyes filled with tears. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." The girl smiled. "I told her about you. About you and Miss Emma." After she left, Riley turned to me, her voice trembling. "We changed something," she said. I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. "We did." That night, as the stars rose above the sea, we sat together in silence, the kind that only love can make sacred. If you had told me years ago that this would be our ending, two girls who loved each other so fiercely that even the world couldn't stop them, I would have laughed too. But now I know better. Love isn't a rebellion. It's a revolution. And ours, quiet, steadfast, stubborn, was the kind that rewrote everything it touched. When I wake up now, I don't see Maplewood or fear, or the ghosts of what we lost. I see her, sunlight tangled in her hair, eyes soft with the kind of peace we fought so hard to find. And every morning, I whisper the same thing to her before she opens her eyes. We made it. Because we did. Against the noise, against the shame, against the years that tried to break us, we made it. And in the small house by the sea, with the painting of a lake that once held all our secrets, our love, quiet, endless, and real, kept blooming. Not in spite of the world, but within it. Because sometimes the bravest thing two people can do is simply choose to stay. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.